Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Tom White from StreamSemester.com, and today I'm hanging out with Jon Pratchett. And Jon is a streaming expert, and we're going to talk esports and education. And before Jon lets us know who he is, I want to share what someone said about Jon that I found in my research. We'll call it social media stalking or whatever you want. One of Jon's clients said that what Jon doesn't know about video and streaming media isn't worth knowing. So, Jon, thank you so much for joining
Thank
me
you.
today. If you would just kind of give us an overview of your experience with broadcasting and specifically
Sure.
esports.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me, first of all. This is great to join you guys. Well, I'm reasonably old now, so I've been in the business for a long time. Started in 1987 as an IT professional, and very quickly moved into the more IT broadcast side in the 90s. Worked with Microsoft on the original streaming media player when it was a postage size stamp window where everybody got really excited about. Gradually through the 90s, moved into production audio, then cameras and lights, but sort of kind of stuck with the whole connectivity side and interest in connectivity between different aspects of broadcast, whether it's audio, video, IT side of things. And that kind of led into streaming. Obviously, a little bit of a background from the Microsoft side, and then into the sort of 2000s onwards, really concentrating on getting TV channels on the internet, corporate on the internet, and eventually the topic we're talking about today, which is, of course, esports, which has become massive over the years. Started initially working with Activision on the Call of Duty launches. So whenever a new Call of Duty game came out every year, they would do some live event. A lot of the time, obviously I'm in UK, so the Europe side of things, that was latter in the year, sort of around November time. So we were doing large-scale esports events based around Call of Duty. And that moved to Gamescom, which is a big gaming event here in Europe. That happened in the summer. And that was sort of my feed into esports. It was like trying to work out what the hell is going on with all these people playing these games. I used to play a bit myself, but not like this. And trying to work out, goodness me, they have no idea about broadcast, but they want to put it on the internet. And then from that, moved into bigger corporation side esports. So I do a lot of stuff with there's a company over here called Gfinity. And I'm a technical guarantee for them. They're one of the largest esports companies in Europe and in the UK now. And we do all the Call of Duty World League and everything like that over here. FIFA soccer, and loads of esports stuff over here. And that's a big arena here in London, in the UK. So yes, it's been a gentle climb, but now 50% of my work, I would say, is probably esports, and the rest is traditional broadcast and film.
And you just wrapped a pretty cool thing with F1. Can you give us a little bit of detail about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously over here, especially, we've been in lockdown because of the COVID-19 side of things, and so everything has stopped as far as traditional events go. F1 being one of them, and F1's a big marketing thing anyway. So a lot of people are wanting to start and do things online. McLaren being one of the bigger companies in F1 and based literally about 10 miles away from me. They wanted to bring a competition online that would allow 16 regular F1 game drivers give them the opportunity to race against a McLaren Formula One driver, being Carlos Sainz, and the Zach Brown, who's the CEO of McLaren. So that was an interesting one. Obviously, they're all at home. Everybody else is at home, but we need to put an event together. So we're having, on the technical side, we're having everybody dial into my system, which I have here, which is now at my house, up in the rear of the garden. Lots of bandwidth, lots of kit in here to be able to take people dialing in, game feeds in, comms layers, everything that you need to run an esports competition of some kind and broadcast it out in hopefully near broadcast quality out on the internet. So yeah, that was a good one. It all went very well. That was last week. Believe it or not, time flies.
That has been one of the things about the quarantine is how, you think of a week and next thing you know it's snap and it's over with. And
Yeah,
yeah, the pictures that you shared were pretty impressive for that. So let's talk about esports. I want to kind of give you a little bit of my background.
sure.
Um, I've always been a traditional sports broadcaster, and about a year ago, I attended a conference, and one of the universities here, Ball State, did an entire presentation about how big esports was going to be at the collegiate level. And I said, well, why can't we do that at the high school level? Um, Education moves a little bit slow.
Yep.
We got our esports team off the ground in January, and it was interesting because I held the interest meeting and had about 40 students show up, which rivaling some of the traditional sports is more than they would have.
Yep.
And we got our League of Legends team started. Played several matches. We didn't lose one of them. We tied one of
Well
them.
done.
But then 2020 happened, and we kind of disbanded the team. But I've stayed in touch with a lot of my guys. We have a big Fortnite contingent. Most of our esports team plays Fortnite. So, but when we were doing the Call of Duty stuff, or not the Call of Duty, League of Legends, we were recording and streaming that. We were streaming to Twitch and to YouTube and Facebook and those type things. So I am definitely a newbie in the esports world, but during quarantine, I've gotten really good at Fortnite. My son and I are playing
Yeah.
several
Yep.
hours a day.
Right.
Sad to say.
Nice.
Um, so, kind of, what have you seen happen with esports over the last couple of years?
So here in the UK and Europe, obviously Europe and especially Germany itself has a massive esports following. I mean, second only to Japan, really, um, and so it's been reasonably big over in Europe, and is gradually over the past sort of 5 6 years increased massively in the UK as well. I do a lot of broadcast production shows, and I go to NAB, which is in Las Vegas, IBC in Amsterdam, and it was always interesting just to see how many of the broadcaster manufacturers are now having a whole section dedicated to esports. So this gives you an idea of how big this is. They're starting to look at it and think, oh, there's a place that they can make money on the kit side. Over here in the UK as well, we're seeing some serious growth in the academic side with esports as well. Obviously, the way in the UK school years, I think, are probably slightly different as they are in the US, but we have our sort of low-end school finishes at 16, and then we have a 16 to 18, which we call our college, and then we have our university, which is 18 to 22 approximately. So the college side of things, which is our 16 years to 18 years old, had until about a year and a half ago, really didn't understand esports, didn't see any need for getting involved in it. But recently, certainly in the last 12 months, they've now realized, and it's similar to you. You said you asked some students to come along who might be interested, and you had more than you expected. They've had the same. There's a local college here, and they're one of the first to start now having a course based around solely on esports, and you can get a qualification, which is called a BTEC qualification in esports, and it's a BTEC qualification is a qualification worth having over here. So they're just starting to put this together now, and they've noticed that one, obviously the students love the idea of an esports qualification, but just how many layers and how many different areas are involved in a whole esports competition. It's not just playing a game. And so on the academic side now, trying to build a syllabus that would include all the respective areas, from playing to the technical side and everything in between, is the challenge that they're trying to face at the moment. But it's interesting. We're getting involved a lot on it, and more colleges are now starting to come together and look at how they can build teams like yourself, you're doing, how that can help in the education towards the qualification, how they can then, at the end of this 2-year qualification, do they have a big inter-college esports competition. Is that part of the course? The end result is not only have you created a team, not only have you learned about the management and everything else involved in running it, but you put a competition together across the colleges, and then at the end you have an inter-college UK esports competition. So it's interesting times, especially in the academic side of things at the moment with esports. It's the next growth area, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I've found interesting here are for us, that high school area is 14 to 18, and just it has exploded there. But then our university level, that 18 to 22-year-old, um, you know, the teams, every school I talk to now has a team, and it's interesting because they're not under the governance of the NCAA, who is our governing body for athletics primarily
Yep.
across the country, because the players, if they did that, they couldn't compete in other tournaments and make money.
Yep.
So it's and that's what a lot of my students at the high school level are seeing. I can go and make a good living just playing video games. And for me, I teach video production, so I'm
Yep.
in the animation side and how to story tell and create those growth points there for those students.
Yeah, and the thing that I've noticed is that students that have got involved on the esports side are initially coming in thinking they want to play the games, but as soon as they start learning and seeing all the other aspects of esports, right down to nutrition and things like that, they're thinking, oh, this is the area I want to get involved in. I want to get involved in the team management side. I want to get involved in the marketing side. I want to get involved in the technical side, the game admin side, which is a big side of esports that people don't think about. And so a lot of the kids are just looking at it and think, I'm going to play a game. Great, I can play Fortnite. Yay, and get a qualification on it or something like that. But when they get involved, they suddenly say, yeah, the game's great. It's great fun to play the games. Absolutely. You're not always going to be one of the best in the world. Everybody thinks they are, but they're not. But there are so many areas that you can move into that are all based around esports as well, that they're certainly trying to move into, and they're finding an interest in as well, which is great.
Yeah, as we started the team this year, talking with other traditional sport coaches, there were, I was joking. I was like, hey guys, I need the weight room for like an hour a day, 4 or 5 days a week, so my guys can work out. And it was in jest, but there's a lot of that nutrition that you touched on, a lot of that health awareness that people aren't aware of when it comes to esports, that really has become an industry in itself.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, over here, certainly in Europe and the UK, we've got esports teams now. They live together. You can buy big apartments here, and there's some around. There's a town near us or city near us called Bristol, and there's massive big apartments there where the teams just all live together with their coach. They train together just like a typical traditional sports team would. And if they don't make the cut, then eventually they part ways. But it is becoming more and more. There's a lot of the traditional side of things that are moving into esports as well. People don't quite realize it sometimes, but it's becoming a big deal there. And there's money to be made, but it is still, I think, one of those sports where kids think they can look at it and they'll go, look at this person, he's winning competitions and making $100,000 every weekend for winning a competition or such like. It's not, that's one person in a team of 6 who have made it through. But there are plenty of other areas and local college and things where smaller competitions have fun. And the other thing is esports has a short lifetime for a person to be able to be any good on. When you get to our age, head doesn't meet hand. I don't know whether you've noticed this. You think it, you know how to do it, and then the reaction time to the hand, and then your 8-year-old son or whatever has taken out 3 people before you've even thought to pull the trigger, which is an interesting thing. It doesn't happen in a lot of other sports, but esports is one of those.
I was explaining esports to someone yesterday, and the part that a lot of people don't understand, and you kind of touched on there, was that how much these games evolve, and that creates that changing lifespan. We were talking specifically Fortnite, and how manufacturers now and game designers are learning that if we can keep it fresh, we can keep people in and we can keep people going. And I was drawn back to when I was a kid, and Mario Brothers. If you
Yep.
played Mario Brothers,
Yep.
it was the same every time. Whereas now esports has changed to where every game, no matter if you try to do the same thing the same every time, is going to be very different. That has helped on the participation side as well as the viewership side, I believe.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's talk about viewership. Let's start basic with things that are needed to stream an esports tournament.
Okay. First thing you need is obviously a tournament, and a well put together tournament that people want to watch. You don't want to just to see a couple of guys in a darkened room with a beard playing games as part of a proper tournament. So a good tournament, well put together, good brackets, well thought out, is the first thing. Techie wise, well, it comes down to the game that you're playing, and there's one big decider that makes a difference on how easy it is to stream an esports competition. That's whether or not the game has an observers mode, whether or not a game can be streamed and you can look at it from a single source. So, for example, it used to be in the older days, Call of Duty didn't have an observers mode. They never thought about putting it in. They didn't need to. Treyarch were the first people to do it, I believe. But if you wanted to stream a 6v6 Call of Duty competition, you had 6 feeds if you want to switch between them. And then all of a sudden, the technological layer that you've got increases by a large proportion to what it would have been if there were just one screen. So, you need a means of taking in the game feed, high quality, 1080p 60, don't go anything less. If you have to, go 720p 60, but don't go 30 frames a second. You will get shouted down like you wouldn't believe if you do anything at less than 60 frames a second. So you need to be able to take the feeds in from the game. You don't necessarily need to take feeds in from the gamers. People are more interested in the game than the person playing it a lot of the time. You need somebody to they tend to call it shoutcasting over here, but commentate over the top. And you need something to go between when they're setting up a game. And that's at the basic level. You can do that with, if you were doing FIFA over here is massive, obviously, because of the soccer side of things. FIFA's great because you can just take a feed from one machine because it's the same on both machines. You can take that into a little vision mixer, whether it's OBS, which I would never really actually choose for doing esports competitions, but something like OBS, you can take a camera feed in, you can take a microphone in, and you can have a little bit of pre-recorded VTs or something to fill some space and things like that, and then encode that to your Twitch channel. And at a really basic level, you can get started. Obviously, then you start thinking, wouldn't it be great if we could have more cameras? Let's show the whole teams. Let's put face cams of all the players. Make sure that whenever that we're showing that player's gameplay, we've got that player's face. So you can work up at that level, and then you tend to do certainly you find it in most esports competitions. You tend to have, we call them the pundits, the host with the pundits who are sitting around a desk discussing the game after it's played, and you got the commentators / casters who talk during the game, and you tend to go backwards and forwards between them. So you can start adding, and you end up turning it into your very much a typical, almost standard-looking sports broadcast. But there's a lot of technical difficulties you have in esports that you don't have in normal traditional sports. Certainly not in your standard traditional sports. F1 slightly different, but in-game chat is one of them. How are we going to in-game chat? If you have it done in such a way, for example, that you are in an arena-style area or something where you have an audience, well, you then need to pipe the audio from the commentators so that the audience can hear it, but you need to make sure that the gamers can't hear it. Because if you're doing something like a Call of Duty and they're going, Bert's hiding behind the log over in the far corner, and everybody goes, Bert's hiding in the log over in the far corner, that's not going to be helpful. So you've got to suddenly start thinking about that. do you have a display up on? Are you projecting it up? Where is that? Is it behind them? Can't have it behind the players because the players will look at the reflections in the monitors and turn their dims down so they can see the reflection up on the screen to give them an idea. So you've got to have the screens in front for the audience. So gradually it starts. Everything has a little technical hurdle that you need to think about. But that doesn't mean you can't start with something. I mean, Blackmagic ATEM Mini Pro nowadays. I'm a Blackmagic trainer over here in the UK. ATEM Mini Pro is a great little piece of kit if you just want to be able to take in an observer's feed and a couple of cameras, mix it, make it look nice, and send it out to stream. It's got a multi-view, yay, unlike the other one. So, you can start small and then work, gradually work your way up. But normally audio is the thing that catches people out a lot of the time on the game side of things. When you start getting to commentators and things like that, what can they hear? Who are they talking to? All that sort of thing. And that catches quite a few people out. But so once you understand how you want to work with the audio, then you can get out there with relatively small amount of kit. I mean, it shouldn't be an obstacle really, I think, for any college to think, well, we can't do this because how much kit are we going to need? Careful of which game you pick is the main thing first. Pick a game that's got an observer's mode and you're good to go very quickly, I think. Don't know what you think. I mean, I don't know what are you doing as far as technically wise on your end for streaming?
Well, I'm blessed that I have a TriCaster in our studio that we run our news on, and as kind of a byproduct of that, I have NDI on all of our machines in our facilities. So I would take NDI feeds from my competitors, my team, and then I would build an ME that had the player's name and whatever, and just show their feed, and just kind of watch the game. And as people were, as different teammates were doing things or trying to keep it interesting and keep it active. And there were times, and again, like I said, our claim to fame was that we didn't lose all of the games we played. But there were times where everyone on my team was rebooting, and it's like, well, are respawning? Well, what do you do, during that time? And again, we didn't really have a chance to really dive in the way I wanted to, and the way that we will do it next year when things kind of get back to normal. But yeah, we were using the TriCaster with NDI. And I just had the Blackmagic ATEM Mini Pro as well, and played with it to do some Fortnite stuff to just see what I could do with it and see if it would work. And it's like you said, it's a great piece. It works well, and it's super simple.
Yep. Interesting you talk about you got a TriCaster. A lot of the bigger stuff that we do over here is NDI based. So Gfinity Studio is the largest NDI, one of the largest NDI networks in Europe. We have 120 sources of full NDI running, to two VMC ones, and then we have a full Dante layer over the top of that, as well as EVSs and things. So the beauty, and obviously NDI is possibly the perfect solution for esports. Not having to worry about running baseband HDSDI everywhere. Just put a good network infrastructure in there. Get yourself some good 10 gig switches, which are not cheap. I mean, NDI people think, oh, it's great. It's going to be really cheap. We don't have to buy all SDI cable and SDI routers. And then you go and look at the cost of a couple of decent Cisco 10 gig switches, and you think, oh. And then you look at a VMC one, and then you look at we haven't got NDI cameras, so we need to convert our SDI cameras to NDI. So I need some Bird Dog or some new tech converters or various other makes. But even now with NDI-HX coming out, being around now, that's brought the cost down on the infrastructure-wise massively. And as long as you stick with NDI-HX, for the majority of people, that's absolutely fine. NDI-HX on a 1 gig network, you can get 50 NDI-HX cameras running if you needed to.
And that's what we've got. We're using NDI-HX because, and I'll be honest with you, in the education space now, with especially here stateside, with the initiatives of one-to-one, where every student gets a laptop or an iPad, the networks are so robust that we could do full NDI.
Yep.
But just kind of the way we have our lab set up, and the fact that most of our work is done when the network's under full load. We've got everything set to NDIHX,
Yep.
but it's been phenomenal. I've yet to have an issue with it
No, absolutely.
when it comes to the network side.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of HX, certainly for stuff that you know you're not going to have to meet traditional broadcasters' specifications on. Let's face it, you're going out to YouTube, you're going out at 6 megabits a second, 1080p 60. So that's considerably less than your camera's sending you anyway. It's about half as much as your camera's going to be sending you at the top end, and the encoding's so good on these things now. OBS is brilliant at screen capturing and taking out if you're running on a PC to give you a NDI out. And as you say, there's many a converter now for doing NDI-HX from a PS4 and Xbox, and it's great. You just put yourself a 1 gig system in, and you can. And TriCasters are probably a little bit expensive at the lower end. Just go and get yourself a vMix system, which is I'm a massive fan of vMix, partly because I know them reasonably well, but it is a super robust piece of software, and it's this piece of software I would always recommend if you were going to say, I need one machine to do most of this stuff, and I'm going to work with NDI. I just say put vMix on it, and you can do everything you want with it nowadays. I mean, we are using Sky News over here in the UK. Have been using vMix for their news, for the remotes and sides and things like that, and building it in the cloud and things. You can do a lot with it, but it's one of those systems where if you don't want to go up to a hardware appliance, which is what TriCasters call themselves, then they except for the fact that they restart every time a Windows do an update, and the vMix is a very good option, I would say, for if you didn't want to go for a hardware solution looking at NDI. Start with vMix, and then you can work yourself up to bigger end TriCaster 800s and VMC1s and things.
So what do you see as the kind of future of esports in education and in broadcasting? What do you see coming on the horizon?
I see it as a major player now out there. First, we'll briefly touch on the broadcasting side. We've been doing stuff that goes out to our BBC, goes out to our BT Sports channels over here, which are large sports channels. They're taking esports, and they're going out after the Premier League matches in soccer. So that's a big slot, and most esports providers weren't up to broadcast level. There's a certain level, as you know, we need to reach for broadcast, for traditional broadcast, and they has to kind of reach that level if you want to get yourself onto that sort of thing. But they're getting there now. As I say, you only have to look at manufacturers now. They're providing equipment that's specifically tailored towards esports or promoting it for use on esports. So I think the more that esports grows in the traditional broadcast market, the more you're starting to see it on TV, not just on a small Twitch channel. The bigger the industry is going to grow, and that's certainly the way it's happening over here in Europe. And as that happens, the desire for students to want to learn more, to want to come out of college, university, and have an understanding of how the esports industry works is obviously going to push the educational side to start putting more and more courses together. At the moment, we're seeing courses that are esports as a whole thing, and you're doing a section on this, a section on that. But I see it as I want to do a degree in esports marketing, and you come out at the age of 22, and you have a degree in esports marketing, and you understand that nutrition, game management, game admin, massive part that people don't think about in esports. Who's setting up these games? Who's running them? Who's monitoring the rules and everything and the regulations and that whole game admin side. So I think it's got a long way to grow, and I think it's also it's going to happen. I don't think this is one of those little flash in the pan. It's just about let's do a couple of years of esports and see how it goes. I've seen that with other things, especially in broadcasts, which have lasted a year or two, but esports isn't. It's sticking around, and every year we're seeing more more esports equipment and push. So that's only going to drive the industry more and therefore drive education more, because people can't come out of education wanting to go in esports and not know anything about it other than how to play Fortnite really well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a big thing. I think it's going to take a year or so, I think, in the UK before, as you say, education doesn't move fast. And so I think we'll see a year or two before we start seeing real qualifications coming out that people will look at and say, I want to employ somebody who's got this qualification. I think it's a learning process at the moment as to what will work in the syllabus, what doesn't work. But it is only growing here, and no doubt over there as well. So yeah, 5 years' time, I think we'll be seeing degree level courses in various sections of esports, and whole areas. Obviously you guys got college football, but imagine slightly on a smaller scale perhaps, but a similar sort of thing in esports as well. And the people don't want to do the running around the field, but they do want to do the sitting and managing the teams and everything else that's involved with esports. So yeah, big times I think are coming.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're just starting to get started and see the tip of the iceberg and what it's going to become on the world stage, much outside of just the U.S. and the U.K. Well, Jon, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. I appreciate it, and I hope that our readers and our subscribers got something from this. And thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for having me.